I gratefully acknowledge the Mascouy, Kwantlen, Katsi, and Semiahmoo First Nations on whose unceded territories I am privileged to live, work, and play. Welcome to Teach Reach, a podcast with Tanguy. Yeah, you read that right. Another episode with another Olivier. Please, producer, cue DJ Khaled. Another one.
Another one. Another one. Another one.
I could have an entire season of this podcast with Oliviers, but this episode was a long time coming. Olivier Day is a close friend, but more importantly, a mentor. This podcast, Teach Reach, would not have been possible without his unconditional support, guidance, and generosity. Olivier is an avid photographer, a captivating storyteller, an amazing father, a supportive husband, a passionate mental health advocate, and a professional podcaster. Really, a true Renaissance man. There is a truth circulating in the podcast world from Chris Williamson that goes as follows. 90% of podcasts launch don't make it past episode 3. Of the 10% that make it past episode 3, 90% don't make it past episode 20. So simply by producing 21 podcasts, you are in the top percentile of all podcasters ever. Well, Olivier's podcast, Awaken the Awesome, is at episode 156. You can understand why I need to have a brother like him on my podcast journey. Not only in the sheer number, but also when it comes to topics that he covers on his podcast, Olivier is a fountain of wisdom. During this episode, he geeks out with our producer Ian Lamb, offers his kind view on what it means to be vulnerable, to be available for your family, his view on fatherhood and manhood, and how to tell yourself the truth to unlock your awesomeness. Olivier invites us to do better every day. Also, as Haitians, it was inevitable not to talk about Haiti and touch on how we process events related to our motherland. It was a delightful conversation in an absolute honor to have such a good dude on the show.
So you can't record if we're recording?
I don't think he can. Or maybe, I don't know if
unless you give me, am I a host?
Allow to record local files. Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay.
I give you permission right now, so you should be able
let me see. Okay, I'll host allows record the meeting. I'm gonna click this. Okay, so I'm recording here.
Got it.
Oh, okay.
Boom. Yeah, we seem to be.
So once this is done, whatever copy I have, I send it to you guys.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was fine.
We may do some pickups at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, hey, say the word that kind of like came out weird.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll splice those in. But otherwise, like, yeah, we're
sure.
I'll give you the NPR tricks.
No issues. No issues. All right, so I got so once that done, I can do that. And yeah, okay. One thing, the thing about Zoom that I realized over time, this is just me. This is just through practice. The thing about Zoom, I noticed for a long period, I'm not sure if you've experienced this with previous recordings. When you do too much, since Zoom was not made for podcasting, what happens often with long ass video recordings, at some point, bandwidth, it's going to happen. Like those spliced, when you're going to become all cyborg and stuff, it happens. I don't know why Zoom does that. A short call, fine. Or just a basic conferencing call, not a problem. But once I don't know if it's because of the recording or the bandwidth or whatever, a long ass, like every time we go past 30 minutes into the 40-minute realm, there will be those little cutoffs. Like, oh, I'm sorry, what did you just say? I was like, I didn't. It does that. I'm just saying.
Okay. All right.
One trick that helps: turn off the video.
Okay.
If you don't need the video, that's something that I really realize really works. Audio is superb. Once you turn off the video, you will not have that problem.
I see. Okay.
That's a really good trick.
All right. Okay.
I'm here to help.
Cool, man. Well, I appreciate the help, and because you're a seasoned, podcaster.
Oh,
Know what I mean?
stop.
Come on, like 150 plus podcast under your belt. That must be like, that must be something.
I
But
seriously did not think I'd get this far. Like really, like looking back at it, all I ever kept as a motivation was like, okay, just do one and then do the other one and then see how far this goes. Just keep repeating. Just do one.
yeah,
No, no.
yeah, yeah. Why did you start?
Um, wow. It actually came from a very, very dark place, if you will. I've told this story before, but it's you, and you're my friend and I love you, my brother and I love you. The thing is, it started from actually looking deep within, having a really bad day and having a really bad week and having a really bad year.
Yeah.
And it was a point where um I was dealing with a lot of how can I say it? uh Insecurity and
Mhm.
self-assessment, if you will, for the longest time. And you know this, I've always gone around like, being like, hey, what's up, awesomeness, and this, like, life is beautiful and great and kumbaya, and there's no bad days. It's like, come on guys, let's just go run around and just like jump into the prairies and everything is great. And at some point you have to call yourself out on your own BS and
Mhm.
realize when you are just putting a facade and you're not admitting to yourself that things are not going so well. Maybe you're working too hard. Maybe you're not, present enough for your wife or your kids. Maybe you are depressed. Maybe you are missing home. Maybe you are maybe on taking on too much debt. Maybe probably should have waited a few things, making some career moves and stuff. Maybe you're taking on too much, and that's okay, but you don't know that when you're
Mhm.
just keeping your head above the water and kept telling yourself that, oh, I'm fine, it's okay, I'm fine. So
Yeah.
eventually what happens, basically, long story short, I was working at this job, got fired, and then my son was born, so it was just a lot of paternity leave sitting on around at home. And having grown up, as being Caribbean, with all that identity of the male identity of being the leader, the provider, the warrior, the rock, le potomitan, like there's no such thing as being down, there's no such thing as being frail, there's no such, how dare you. I wasn't
Mhm.
raised to feel this way. I wasn't raised to question how I feel. No one, my father didn't ask me, how do you feel? I love my dad. But find me a Haitian dad ever sitting down with his son, like, son, how does this make you feel? What is your internal dialogue saying? Let us wake up with self affirmations. We need positive affirmations. Fuck that, man. Get over it. So I had to
Yeah.
re-engineer myself. It's a long ass answer to a very powerful question. Um, but eventually what happened is that's like I realized that after dealing with a lot of depression and sitting around with the baby, just me, myself, and the baby in an empty house, I'm sitting myself, I'm like, I can't be the only person going through this as a man, as a father, as a husband. And you know what? I used to write, I used to blog, I used to do, and there's a lot. I also realized how much I closed myself off from the world, taking on the responsibilities of the father, employee, husband, and all that jazz. And eventually I forgot myself. And that's where basically I interpreted as falling asleep. I was asleep, just going through
Mm.
the motions. And that's where I realized that I need to wake up. That's why I called it Awaken the Awesome. That's why basically it
Ooh.
was my own journey of waking up. You need to get up. You need to take a shower. You need to take your health back in check. You need to take your marriage back in check. You need to take your parenting back in check. You need to take your mental health back in check, if that's even a thing. You need to take your identity back in check.
Mhm.
And if I'm going to be this, not even as an example, because I'm learning myself, I'm reconstructing myself. I'm like, you know what? This is going to be my journey. And this is why I opened up even the first episodes. I'm like, I'm learning this with you guys along the way. I don't have all the
Mhm.
answers, but if you're willing to walk with me, let's see what we can learn along the way. Let's see who we can
Mhm.
meet along the way. Let's see who we can
Mhm.
learn from along the way. Long ass answer. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And when you were talking about, the Caribbean father, I was laughing, but that's a Caribbean thing too, when those very profound things are being said, because we've been ingrained to hear them, the only thing that you can do when you see them is just laugh. Like, I mean, it is sad that as Haitian men, we grew up with, I don't want to say all of us, but many of us share the same experience of when was the last time or the only time that your father sat down with you and asked you, how do you feel? Right. And that's the reason why I laugh about it. But I think, and it's funny because even in your own answer, we all do the same thing. We haven't received those things yet. We still love our parents. Like it's mind blowing, right? It's like
mind blowing.
I didn't have that. My father didn't sit me down to ask me how you feel or how it is and have self-affirmation. But within that answer, we still have that little bracket. But I loved them. It's crazy. Like, so my question to myself, because it's something that I've experienced too as well, is like, do we feel the need to say that we love them as we forgive them, or do we see that they didn't have the tools to provide that empathetic way of loving? Like, why do you think we still say that little bracket, right?
I believe, and it's only hindsight that allows you, again, if you're willing to walk the journey of, finding out the layers, peeling away the layers of your own BS and looking at what got you here, because we are all the product of the decisions, the conditioning, the environment, the exposure, and the culture of all these experiences that got us here. So we always have to look within, but also we have to look from the outside in. So what I mean is that when I look at my father, when I look at my parents, as much as I could blame them for a lot of things that I could possibly say that, because a lot of children, a lot of offspring are probably going to say, this is how they fucked me up. This is how they fucked me up. The blame is easy. But when you put yourself in their shoes, in their context, in their particular environment, all right, Haiti, third world country, meager resources, the best of education, some of us came from our children of lawyers and engineers and doctors and businessmen and stuff, but we're all parents growing up in Haiti. Let's not lie to each other. Listen, I say this very openly. I say this sometimes to my wife, like, do you realize that I couldn't drive yet, but I knew how to use a firearm because my father was often out into the fields, traveling and everything. He couldn't be home to protect his wife and kids. But I had to learn to. So that is a reality I hope I never have to teach my own son. Right? But I have to take that step back and understand that they did the best they could with what they have, with what they knew. Yes. So you can't condemn them if you do not have the audacity or the empathy to look at things from their perspective. Yes. I did a live recently because I was dealing with a lot of openness, and one of the challenges was to slay your own demons as well, as it was called. And I made a live about, forgiving myself, but also my mom for being so hard on me for school, because I had a lot of trouble, leading up, to high school and stuff. So it was a very big point of contention between the two of us, because I'm the child of high overachievers. Yeah. And for the longest time, I carried that weight. And, I blamed, her a lot because we fought a lot with that. And, I had to take a really long step back to actually realize, how can you blame a mother for wanting the best for her son? How can you blame a mother for knowing what the power of an academic achievement can bring you, the doors that it can open, to know what it's like to grow up into a third world country, to open up doors for you, to what that can do in terms of limitation, how people look down on you for not achieving scholastically? How can you look down? How can you be mad at her for just wanting the best for her son? You have kids now. So to answer your question, that comes from the fact that, it was tough, but we understand if you're willing to open your heart and open your mind to the perspective and the empathy, you understand that they did the best they could. Again, some parents should not have kids because we've had physical abuse. We've had child molestation. There are horrible things that we can speak of. But
That's right.
as a whole, from my own perspective, my own experience, Haitian parents, Caribbean parents, as tough as they are, have, in the best way they could, and they knew how to, armed us for this thing called life. And for that, we can only be grateful. That's my 2 cents.
Amazing. That's beautiful. I mean, my mom's going to listen to this and she's going to say, see, why can't you be like that? Thank you so much for the standard, man. I like it. You know, that's something that our parents, especially Haitian parents, they do always, right? Why can't you be like them? Why can't you be like that? They are doing this. Why can't you do like that?
For sure. It happens. You have to take it in. But you know what? Again, you can't let the ego, cloud your judgment. And I'm speaking from patience. I'm speaking from a lot of, again, open conversation, because if you're not willing to deconstruct what got you here, because we're not perfect, and we have to understand we were troublemakers growing up. So there's a lot of that in there.
For you, man. Don't spill things about me. Don't spill my tea, Like I know you have receipts, and I do too. So we were troublemakers. Troublemakers. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And I'm gonna leave it at that, because that's
for sure.
Whatever,
let's just leave it
whatever
there.
Whatever picture people want to have in their mind,
let's leave it at that.
Let's leave it at that, right? I like the level of truth, because you mentioned that you were Mr. Awesome, right? And you're still Mr. Awesome, right? Like, and then you exude. We go way back. I've known you you were 15 years old. It's been 25 years. It's been 25 years since I've known you, and you've always exuded a level of confidence, right? Like your stature, you're quite tall. You command a room, right? And you were Mr. Awesome, but there's a level of truth that you had to dig deep to be like, you have to cut the BS, right? Like open it and then just what sense of freedom comes from that truth?
It is very it takes a lot of accountability. It takes a lot of vulnerability. But the freedom itself is, you can't define it, because it's something that is both so rewarding but incredibly frightening at the same time. Because see, you just put it forward. I wear that as my calling card. I've always been the person that, and I'm not saying this as, in terms of pretentious whatsoever. You just say my name, like, oh yeah, are you just coming to the party? Oh damn. It's like, oh, he really? It's like, Ali's coming over. It's like, no doubt. But at some point, that comes with a lot of pride. That comes with a lot of heartwarming, feeling. I love everybody. But also, when you have to pull on the brakes and realize that you can't be everything to everyone all the time, because your cup runneth empty. And this is something I've learned, my own affirmation. You can't give what you don't have.
Yeah, I like that.
Affection doesn't run on credit, because at some point you got to pay it back. And when you don't have it, it eats you up, And I had to really take a very severe inventory into how I was doing. I still see myself at some point. I was working a very high corporate job at some point, and things were heavy both at work. Things were heavy at home, because hey, you're giving 150% at work, so you're drained. Then you come home to a wife who spent the entire day with a baby. So the wife is asking you like, okay, it's like, listen, I've been at home with this baby here, so now you want to lash out because hey, she doesn't understand what you're dealing with, but you're not understanding what she's dealing with because she's at home with. Or you home with a baby, and then now okay, so you're trying to give here. But also you just want the world to shut up. But hey, you got to eat, and you're tired, and you want to go to the gym, but you're not putting into the gym. And now you just want to read, but you can't read. You want to go out with your friends, but now you have you're all over the place, but you're smiling. And everything is fine, and everything is great, and there's no problem at all, and everything is awesome. And I had to take a step back. I remember I had to pick up a phone because the company I work for had a employee assistance program, and I never thought that I would be making that call. I made the call and I spoke to a social worker about, overwhelm and family dynamics and work-life balance and stress. It took me at least 6 to 8 calls to
Wow.
actually speak to someone. And it would be between, I would take appointments on my lunch break. I would take appointments between work and home. And I
Mm-hmm.
would even tell my wife, like, no, I'm taking this business call because I was ashamed to admit to
Yeah.
my wife, to admit to my friends, to admit to myself that I need help. I don't know how to deal with this. And maybe I need someone from the outside looking in
Mm-hmm.
to tell me things that I probably don't want to hear. It was heavy. And I still remember her. She told me, is it possible that you're taking on too much? Is
Wow.
it possible that you're taking on too much, without knowing what I do for a living whatsoever? She's just like, it was very, she put everything very objectively in a box. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
let's list out all the things that stress you out. Not sleeping well, not eating well. You're not present for your wife. You're not present for your kids. You're not present. You're always taking your girl to the daycare. You're going to work. You're trying to go to the gym. You're trying to take on this thing. You're trying to create this. Is it possible you're taking on too much?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh damn, but I'm Mr. Awesome. But I tell people all the time, you're supposed to get it over. There's no problems. Like, just do this. It's not a problem. Let's go. Like, you can do this. You can do this. Um, what happens when you can't?
Mm-hmm.
What happens when your batteries are drained? What happens when you just have had too much? What happens when you are tapped out?
Yes. Yeah.
You have to let go of the steering wheel. And I had to, before bearing myself to the world, I had to admit that to myself. That was hard. And then I
Mm.
realized that, you know what, there's no shame, because I'm not saying this condescendingly, but it's just like the world doesn't care. The people that matter will show up for you.
Yeah.
The people that don't matter, well, good on them.
That's
It's like, that's good. And you learn to water stuff down and to prune out the
yeah.
unnecessary. And
That's beautiful.
that's what
That's
happened.
beautiful. And there's so many like intersection in there, like that segue that we can go to. I wanted to touch on when you talked about, being present for your partner, being present for your wife, and what is your role as you go through that process of thinking about, are you taking on too much? What is your role as a father?
Oh, first of all, you are not. I say this to all dads. That's a cause I've taken on very personally over the past couple of years, not just via the podcast, but also a lot of relationships I've done online. I've done a lot of men's groups, a lot of men's support groups, especially for black men, black Caribbean men, because I realize it's a conversation that our culture, our compadres, as I call them, need to have.
Mhm.
But for myself, I see myself. I am not mom 2.0, as in I am not here to do my wife's job, but I'm here to provide, create, and facilitate the best circumstances for my wife to do the best she can in her role as a mother. So I'm not here to breastfeed, but if there's something that I can do, like basically, like my wife and I, my wife couldn't breastfeed because for so many reasons. But yeah, so basically, I used to prepare formula. I used to go out to the pharmacy, buy the necessary milk. Used to do the laundry for the kids, just like make the laundry available, for spit ups. Even if
Mhm.
though I was working long ass days, I told my wife, like, you know what, I'm taking night shifts because I used to work night shifts back in the past life, so I can get off on very little sleep. So I'm like, you know what, I know I'm not home during the day, but you know what, you rest and I'll take care of the baby during the night. So the baby would wake up. I got bottles. I'm in the baby room. I'm in the basement, playing video games and just like, you just chill. My role as a father and a husband is to provide as much of, safety, security, leadership, wisdom, patience, honesty, listening, and ear to listen to for both my wife and my kids. Sometimes, you have to admit to yourself, being a parent is hard. I don't want to curse on your podcast, but
No, 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 no. Go ahead,
it's
man.
being a
Go
parent is
ahead.
fucking hard. And it's a
Louder for
truth.
people in the back.
It's a truth. It's an uncomfortable truth that a lot of people, new parents, old parents, even traditionally speaking, refuse to admit to yourself. And I'm
Yes.
here to actually, again, peel those layers off. Being a parent is fucking hard. Okay.
Mhm.
It is not easy. Every child is different. Every spouse is different. And you have no idea what that does to you physically, mentally, emotionally, socially. Because let's know this, like, you know this, like we grew up like Côte des Neiges, like, you know, on by Blackman, pas de problème, Ridgewood, pas de problème, Forest Hill, pas de problème. The second you have kids, oh, what happened to Olivier and Regine? We don't see Olivier and Regine anymore. Like, what happened? Like, wow, they had kids.
Yeah.
And that is also something you have to accept. Your life will change. And for the significant other, be present for your spouse. You have to also bring the reality home. Like, listen, you need some time for yourself. We are, you know, conversations that I encourage people to listen to this. You need time for yourself. You were a person before you were a parent. You were a person before you were a spouse. Even as a couple, you guys also need to create space for each other. You can't just always be talking about school, the kids, the diapers, the food, school clothes, boots. No, you also need to create that space, whether it's just putting them to bed and going and watch a movie in the basement or in the kitchen, whatsoever, even on your phone on Netflix. You need to create time for each other. Otherwise, that creates distance, because these devices are taking over your lives. These devices are taking over your time. They're taking over your attention. And if Netflix is getting your attention, that's an attention that your spouse is not getting. I'm not saying this to be coy. I'm saying this because it's a reality. A lot of people do not learn how to connect anymore. That is my role, to actually bring this back, because I can't change the person, but I can only bring the best of myself in the best way I know how.
Yeah. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Like, you know, you were talking about that being a parent changes you like mentally and physically. And both you and I, we are spotting a lot of gray in our beard right now. In our
Did you notice?
Our head.
Oh my God.
We are spotting like, you know, some gray in there.
Salt and pepper.
We should start a group, like a remix or something, you know. And I recently turned 40, and we're of the same generation.
My man, 40.
And then you just turned 40, and
yes,
a lot of I've been thinking about while you were speaking is how much wisdom there is in what you're saying. And I think going through everything that you went through and the real awakening that you had really put you as the true Mr. Awesome. Like, now you are awesome because you embraced the fact that you cannot pour from an empty glass. So you had to find somewhere to resource yourself and to kind of embrace the new reality that you are going through with your wife and kids. So with that wisdom, how is the new age treating you? How is 40 treating you?
Can pick that apart in so many ways. But in all reality, you have to, first of all, I am filled. I know this sounds really cheesy, but I am filled with so much gratitude. So much gratitude for every single experience, every single obstacle, every single failure, every single, you know, opportunity, every single privilege, as basic. And I'm telling this again from a third world perspective, something as basic as running water.
Yes.
Okay. Just be able to walk over with a glass, open the tap, grab a glass of water, drink from the tap.
Yes.
And just like, you know what, go about my day. Or something as simple as, hey, you know, again, Haitian perspective. You know how many times I forget my keys in the door? Like, again, I come home, pick up the groceries, kids go in, okay, not a problem. And then, just put on my PJs, you're about to tuck in for the night. Like, where are my keys? And I go back out and I realize, wow,
they're under the door.
They're on the door. So that person could have probably, I live in a good neighborhood where I don't have to worry about someone stealing my keys and walking away with my car. Yeah. Or something as basic as, being grateful for the relationships that you had, people like you, Coralie, Baslin, my wife, my kids, they're not perfect. They massacre my Saturday mornings, but I have 2 kids who are healthy, who are not walking with crooked feet or respirators, or I have to go do weekends at the hospital,
Yeah.
I'm not macking like, I don't know, Jeff Bezos, but is that really my purpose in life? But a lot of perspective. The new age gives me a lot of perspective and gives me so much to be grateful for. Also, and for me, it's been a really big thing. Also, understanding that, and I hope people hear this because this is very important. Understanding that relationships, the people you keep around you, are incredibly important. But also, not everybody that starts a journey with you is supposed to continue with you or end up wherever you're going. Everyone has their own journey, and people are deathly afraid to admit that to themselves, that whether certain friendships, relationships, and I'm talking either family relatives, like blood relatives, to colleagues, to friends that you had for like 10 years, you also have to also take into account that where you are right now, are we at that same crossroads? Are we on that same path? And if that's not, if the answer is no, you need to be honest with yourself. You bear no one, no ill will, but you need to understand that, and a lot of people are going to give me flack for this, but certain relationships, habits, and practices no longer serve you. I'm not just talking about your food. I'm also talking about your thoughts, the shows that you watch, the stuff that you read, the place that you go, the people you hang out with. You need to take ownership and a good audit of that and understand where you are and where you're going. So that's where I am. Honestly and truthfully, that's where I am right now.
I love the piece about gratitude, knowing where we come from, and being grateful for, tap water, and not expect that CAMEP will send water after like 5 months of no water and a bill. Speaking of which, we cannot connect here without asking really how you are feeling, about the recent events that happened in Haiti over the weekend with the earthquake that happened. How are you doing? How are you feeling within everything that we talked about here, but, a little checking into the human and the Haitian in you, right? How are you feeling?
I appreciate it. It was quite rough to wake up to that. Again, the beauty of connection, right? Because again, you just pop up your phone and everybody's all over the place. I'm good. Thank God. My family's okay. My father, so far in Haiti, I've got my father, my mother, my sister and her husband, and my nephew. So they're all located in Thomasin. But everybody felt the shake, but they're not in the particular southern area where most of the damage happened. But obviously for me, there's also that sense of, yes, gratitude that they're okay, but also that dread, and if not to say anger, of the fact that our country just cannot catch a break. And it's that particular feeling of being such an emotional sponge, if you will, because I think back at the 2010 earthquake and I think about the mental ramifications of that, because my sister was in the Citibank building when it happened. My mother was downtown, and it's very raw right now. So when you think about what could have happened to people that we lost, obviously, so for something not to happen again, especially with the political turmoil, the recent assassination, and the insecurity and everything, it's been a wild ride this year. And not to top it all off, you're like, foot, monsieur. Vamos la paix, it's heavy, but I'm good. It's something that we can only pray for, trying to find some kind of respite, if you will. But there's also that feeling of powerlessness of being abroad. But what else can you do aside from being the Haitian voice, not the CNN voice for the colleagues? Because that's going to happen.
Yeah. And that's something that I find, it's part of the exhaustion as well, is the fact that, and part of me understands that when people try to reach out, people, at least right now, I can understand that people are trying to, their heart goes out to you. So I take it as, I appreciate it. And then I've had kind of like a standardized answer that I kind of like craft in my mind on Saturday to be like, this is how I'm going to answer, whether it's a close friend or whether it's someone that haven't spoke to me like in 8 months. And then all of a sudden, I remember I have an Haitian guy that I know. So let me just put a text. And before, like 2010 me, that's like 11 years ago, I was like, 29, 30, it would be like, I'm angry. I am angry. And not only the fact that, in that earthquake, well, as you mentioned, that there was a lot more people that were affected. And also we lost a lot of people, myself personally, and a lot of people that we know, right? Like, so we were affected. And not to say that right now we are not affected, but this time kind of, it's like a wound that's been like repoked, right? And then it's kind of like with the level of privilege that we are where we are, we can say, oh, it's a test of the trauma, like where I'm at. Like, it's kind of a check-in. But for people that are in Haiti, it's pretty tough. Like, it's super, super tough. But on my end, it was like, I will give everyone the benefits of the doubt that you are checking in and then you want the best. You are not weaponizing this against the Haitian people, because that's what we see sometimes is that those images become, and then they will keep on telling you or telling us that we are the poorest countries in the Americas, even though us as Haitian, we mention those things, but we don't mention it in the same breath as what people are saying, the CNN, or even the folks at our job that are like, hey, what up? Once again, hey, Haiti. And you're like, what do you mean once again, and Haiti, right? Because like natural disasters happen. Like right now I'm in British Columbia, and there's like wildfires. For the last 5 years, we've had wildfires back in the over and over and over again. But not a lot of people are saying like, oh my God, wildfires again, those people are cursed. But when it happens to us, all of a sudden, it's like, oh, that's the calling card. And then you're like, well, you don't have my best interest at heart. And even in the midst of all that, I still put it on myself and be like, you know what? I'm going to give people the benefits of the doubt and be like, for that. It's like, I appreciate the support. I appreciate it. And then because I realize that we cannot convince anyone, and I'm not in the convincing business. Nope. Maybe that's part of like being 40. It's like, I don't need to convince you. I don't need to dig deep into your deep intentions. I have the option to disconnect. I can disconnect. I can go and do about my business. And then the people that matter will be the one that I have to, pick up and give a little bit of support, like be a shoulder for them to lean on if I have the capacity, right?
You can't be,
but it is exhausting.
It's exhausting. It is exhausting. And you can't be in that push and pull relationship in regards to how you transmit that information, because again, we are not, okay, it's kind of a dumb example. We are not the Jesse Jacksons, if you will, of Haiti. Like we're always trying to be the face of like, because that's the thing, especially, and I say this very openly, growing up in Quebec, there's a very particular image that the Quebecer has of Haitian, right? And it always unnerves me every time I see, news outlets, I won't name them, but they will go in the same neighborhoods, in the same particular very well-known Haitian shops or little kitchenettes or whatsoever, and they're going to talk to people coming out. It's like, those are the best Haitians you can find to talk about a situation. It's like, really? Again, like you said, benefit of the doubt. And it's like, you don't need to consistently like picking out the same people. That's
right.
Like I've become used to being the token Haitian, but you know what? You very much need to take a step back, like the smarter ones, not to put anybody on the spot, but we need to be our generation going forward. And at least that's the effort I would like us to make, is to try to not disconnect, but recognize these triggers, these moments of genuine frustration and genuine exhaustion, and tell ourselves again, I have to be the new chapter, the new voice, where I am allowing a different level of communication to someone who ignores. And I really mean ignorance is, again, not a condemnation. Ignorance sometimes is like pure curiosity. Look, listen, I just don't know. I have friends like that at work who just don't know. And they're just like genuinely curious. Like, okay, so are there hospitals there? Are there like, what's public transportation like? Oh, really? So your mother's a doctor, but really, there are a lot of doctors. Oh, really? It's like, okay, so really, it's like, how many airports are there? So do you see that in their face? Some people are really just discriminate, and there are people who are just curious, and you need to have the patience to just, let me go through the Haitian history again.
But one thing I can emphasize as well is that you have the right not to engage.
Yes.
You have the right to like not delegate, but be like, hey, it is not my job to educate you at this present moment. And it's fine. And then maybe another time, maybe in a year or two, I'll be more like disposed to help or to educate you or to guide you through it or to invite you in my family for you to see like how we do things or how one Haitian family does things. But it's more of a of understanding your capacity to take on new challenges to like educate people, right? And of course, for people listening, I will make sure that I know some people are sometimes wondering, like, what can they do, right? That like, okay, well, can they donate? Do they have some local organization that they can support? And I will make sure to have all that available in the show notes and also on Instagram for some people to kind of like, do whatever they can, right? And that's the thing. There's a feeling of powerlessness that we have when something like that happens, when an earthquake happens, especially for us Haitians that are abroad. We're like, okay, well, what can I do to help? What can I do and so local organizations, we learned this from Hurricane Gordon in 1994, but some people learned it in like earthquake 2010, right? But we learned that there's some organizations that you do not mingle with because they don't have they just pop in when there's a new natural disaster. But
we know better now.
Hopefully that your family and people listening, if they have families there, that they can understand that some people can be re-traumatized, some people can have some major triggers that have happened, and that they can provide support, that they can listen, that they can give them a way for them to deal with their traumas, and their ways to navigate that new reality that we have to deal with the pandemic, earthquake, and then tropical storm coming on as we're speaking right now on the south. So it's a lot to take. So the exhaustion can
it's very real.
It's understandable for sure. We touched on a lot of things, and as I remember things that you were saying in talking about understanding our limitations, you use some like language that is akin to managing yourself as you would manage a business. And as we are Haitians, we know tons of Oliviers, and one Olivier that is my good friend, another one. We could do an entire like season on my podcast on all the Oliviers, and we would not run out of Oliviers for like 50 episodes.
For sure.
That would be easy. Okay. But one of them, I remember back in like 2004 in a bus in Montreal, he's like, dude, you need to know yourself like a good business. So you need to know your strength and your limitation. And at that point, I was like, dude, is it because you're studying business that you think everything is about business? But you kind of like mentioned that of like understanding your limits and knowing when to accept that it is too much. And I would like to make a segue to this year's Olympics when Simone Biles, the greatest of all time gymnast, my greatest of all time gymnast, and also Naomi Osaka, who's half Haitian, decided to take a stand and for their mental health and decide, you know what, they recognizing a moment that is too much and say, this is too much and I'm going to do something about it. How did you process those news?
I thought for having been really getting myself involved into the importance, especially for men, as I mentioned, to recognize and be a hell of a lot more honest in regards to their struggles with mental health. I've also understood through a lot of reading and a lot of documents that I've read, and of course, my own experience, again, Caribbean, men don't talk. Men don't talk. Men don't open up. You just don't do that. You just brush it off as, I'll be okay. So when I saw that on the grandest athletic stage in your life, this is what you train for. This is what, and again, and my wife was even asking this. If we're just going to take Simone Biles as an example, you have medals, you've won medals. You are the definition. You are the end all and be all what every gymnast right now aspires to be. You've shown what can be done, and you've actually disproved what a lot of people said could not be done. You are by far the greatest athlete, like the greatest gymnast, like of all time. Like it does not even compare. And you, that again, celebrity, fame, achieve, and again, you know this from having watched probably Michael Jordan's The Last Dance. The Last Dance. You recognize for champions, athletes like the Kobe's of the world, the Jordans of the world, there is a method to the madness. You have to have a certain level of insatiable crazy and insanity to understand what fuels a champion. And having spoken and interviewed to a lot of them, you understand, you have to hear them talk about it. Losing sleep, losing parties, losing relationships, losing, just putting everything aside for this one goal. And here you are on the grandest stage of them all, and you're realizing to yourself, for your own ego, for your own achievement, for your team, for the world, for your country, and for your family, for everything, you have to chip all that away and realize that, you know what? This is going to cost me a bigger price than I'm willing to pay. And I'm going to bow out. That takes tremendous courage. That takes tremendous knowledge of self. And it takes acceptance that, you know what, I'm probably going to get flack for this. This is not going to go well. This is going to eat me alive because this is this goes against my own conditioning, but this is something that I need for me. And these ladies did it in a very admirable and honorable and dignified fashion. There were two camps. Yay, go. And then really, you really just couldn't get over it. Like, really, you had to, dude, really? You understand that at the end of the day, there are no wrong choices, save for, again, stealing from someone's pocket, killing someone, giving someone harm, but there are only choices that you can live with. And that is why I applaud them. And this will go down as one of the examples and making it okay, shedding the light yet again, because let's not lie to each other. You've read a lot of documentation, like all the underbellies that goes on, and especially United States gymnasts. The gymnastics program, especially for the girls.
Yes.
So let's not leave that aside. So we don't know what kind of trauma she went, just even leading up to that. But you know what? This is her taking a stand, letting people know that, you know what? I'm Simone Biles and I'm dealing with mental health, and it's okay. So that makes it okay for someone else, who's going to make it okay for someone else, who's going to make it okay for someone else. How the Olympic body went about it in regards to whether championing her whatsoever. But a lot of people, myself included, supported her. And same thing for now, Miss Osaka. It was a very courageous thing to do, to actually say, like, you know what? Yeah, I'm in this tournament. Yeah, I signed up. But you know what? This is too much for me right now.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to bow out.
Yeah.
And that's cool.
Yeah.
That's
and
totally
there's something to be said too about the fact that we as public think there is only one way to be a champion. There is only one way to, I admire Michael Jordan. My first episode was about Michael Jordan. Like, I mean, I admire the guy, but for a very long time, we've been fed that the only way for you to reach the mountaintop and to achieve is to block everything off, is to create kind of like a mad, obsessive way, and to make every level of sacrifice possible for you to reach that mountaintop. And what I like with Simone Biles, Naomi Osaka, LeBron James, it's kind of like they are redefining the, wait a second, there is an other way to do those type of things. There is an other way to be a champion. There is another way to be awesome. There is another way. And that way is also something that you sacrifice, but you sacrifice other people's expectations, and then you put yourself first, and you redefine the way that we used to see things. Like Simone Biles redefined the way that we see gymnasts. There's a bunch of other Black women athletes and gymnasts that have redefined the way that we see gymnasts, especially in terms of like body appearances and physicality, right? Same thing on the tennis side when we're talking about Serena Williams. They redefine that and they're like, no, the way to be a champion is to owning what you can do, what you are, and be yourself, right?
Be your best self. Be your best self, not just your coach's best self, your parents' best self, and this is in every facet, not just to athletics, not just to, anything, every single facet of your life. You have to define what that achievement looks like for you, and you need to own that. There will be sacrifices. There will be things that you will have to give up. There will be opportunities that you will have to look away just to get to that end goal. But you also understand that, okay, what is the price you're willing to pay? And understand that, is it your expectation of yourself or is it someone else's? Once that becomes someone else's, you need to question, like, is that validation enough for you to sacrifice your own well-being and these relationships and the list that we actually went through? But you need to define that for yourself and you need to own it. And that's scary for some people, because sometimes you need to, again, going back to the Haitian upbringing, I have to be first. I have to be first. Otherwise, I'm going to come home. I'm going to get belted. I have to be first. I have to be first. I have to be first. You know this. Kid comes home with a third, being third. He has a 9.10, but he's third, and he's still going to get the belt because he wasn't first.
And that creates some high level of expectation, and also it's makes us see that we have to be perfect. There's no small steps, right? There's no like, it's either you're good or you're not, right? As opposed to you can take that first step to get closer and closer and closer approximation, right? And even in the way that they teach us in Haiti, right? Like it's very much, I remember when I moved to Quebec after grade 11 or 12 in Haiti, and mathematics, the way that they teach us sometimes in Haiti is that here's the formula, apply it, right? And there was a shift of the way that they were teaching us in Cégep or in college in Quebec, where it was like you have small increments of trial and error, and then you can extract from that trial and error some sort of a formula that is closer. And we're talking about mathematics, like, yes, there's clear-cut formulas, but we are progressing towards you finding it out, as opposed to me telling you this is the way it is, you apply it and just shut up. Right?
So true.
And a lot of Haitian like colleagues or condisciples, I don't know like how we say that, classmates, classmates, a lot of Haitian classmates that moved from Haiti with me to Montreal had trouble with that, and they would really headbutt with the teacher or be like, this is not the way we do it that way. And me, I saw a little bit of an opportunity to learn another skill or to extrapolate that skill into life. There's no one that's going to come and tell you, this is the way you'll be a parent, you execute it. That's not the way it works.
It doesn't work that way.
It doesn't work that way. Like you go day by day, and then you extract something that works for the 2 weeks that you have a newborn. And then after that, they change and you have to go back to the drawing board. So I feel like that created our education, although very, very good, created some false sense of like, there is just this way to do it, and don't you dare like
a very rigid perspective of the circumstances that life will bring forward.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm happy you brought that up, because from my own experience, like for you, it was okay. This was like the scholastic environment, the academic environment. I'm gonna go one level deeper. Right. This is your show. I don't want to be too controversial, but for me,
go ahead.
It was when I realized how bigoted I was in regards to my own Haitian culture, because going to UQAM, which is at the doors of the Montreal Gay Village, it's only when I had a group project and we were talking about the social dynamics within the workplace and stuff and everything, and I brought it up as an example, like, okay, what can constitute, like, what can be a difficulty when you're at work or something. I'm just talking about me, right? It's like, yeah, people, LGBT people, obviously gay people can often get discriminated against, like teased and stuff. And dude was like, well, I'm gay. I don't get teased at work. And I was just like, okay. And it really set me back because I realized like my entire mental conditioning of stuff, see, it's just perspective, conditioning, exposure, and culture. I'm like, whoa, I'm in a new country. I'm in a new environment, and it's only like dealing with people and just hanging around different types of people, not just Haitians. And I realized like, oh my God, there's a different culture, there's a different lifestyle. They're just people. They just happen to be the same sex, but people are people. For me, it was a really huge humble pie. I'm like, dude, you've been bigoted all your life using very derogatory words, which I will not say on your show, but you were saying that shit like freely and openly and laughing about it. But you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
So if you're not willing to shift, if you're not willing to deconstruct what I call the Lego tower of your mind, you need to take away those pieces and reconstruct whatever fits to your own reality of now. If you're not willing to break that away, you are doing yourself a disservice to experience life to its fullest. You need to look at things differently, whether through your culture, your education, how to apply a math problem, how to deal with people, how to accept people. It is something that is really worthwhile. And that's something I try to teach my kids. It's not always easy. There's no manuals, but you have to always keep that in check because there's no perfect formula.
That's amazing. You kind of like read my mind because we're getting to the point of the show where, when I'm about to wrap up, because we touched on so many things, and then
I love this, man.
as Caribbean, we can, like, if we were live, we would bring a set of dominoes, and then we'd be like, all right, let's eat, play dominoes, and then we continue that conversation.
Bring out the bubble cool. Let's make it happen.
Bring out the rum, but well, we have kids now. We're not there till 4 a.m. I'm sorry, bro. Like,
that's something 40 does to you too. Like, at 10:30, I'm done.
I have a general that will wake me up, rain or shine. He goes to bed okay, but he wakes me up at 7, and I'm lucky. I will say that 7:30, 7:45. That's when you like, he comes in the room to like, hey, I'm awake, and then really I'm lucky.
Wow.
People, please don't hate me, but he will require assistance by 8:20. So I can't complain, but it's on me if I decide to party the night away, get home at 4, and then he's like, dude, what happened to you? Like, I give you ample time. So we're not gonna be Caribbean here and then just like start going all over the place. But we get to a place of the show where the show is called Teach Reach. And this is a moment of the show where I'm always asking my guests if to give me 2 teach and 1 reach, and I'm going to explain what that means. To teach would be 2 beautiful moments that have happened in the last few weeks or months, or yesterday or this morning, whatever. 2 teach, beautiful moments, powerful moments, and then 1 reach, something that you're like, I don't like that. This is a reach, like playing basketball. It's a reaching foul. Like, no, like, I'm sorry, that's a stretch. Foul, like red card, yellow card, but we call it a
reach. Is like, that's not for me. Like,
that's not for me. That's not acceptable. I didn't like it. I don't appreciate that. Right. Whether it was like, maybe it's a comment on a movie, like whatever it is, like we just wanted 2 teach, like two cool moments, and then 1 reach of like, check yourself. Like,
for me, okay, 1 teach was it's gonna sound again really cheesy. I was taking my kids out to ride their bikes because we bought them bikes. My daughter like picked it up like that because she's been riding since last year, but my son was always very very babyish about it. Like, it's so easy to just fall into the baby mode because he's 5 and just like, oh, I don't want to ride it, I'm gonna fall. And I really, basically, we went out to a Costco parking lot. I'm like, dude, we're here, your sister's gonna ride, took off the training wheels, you will ride until your heart's content, but we are not leaving here until you ride. I just sat on the car. I'm like, daddy's here, you're gonna fall, you're wearing your helmet, you're fine, right? But you're going to ride. And I know this from experience, having talking to so many people. At some point you have to take the training wheels off, and the best thing I can do for him is tell him that you can do this, You will probably fall, but I will be here. All right.
Mhm.
Took him about 45 minutes. He cried his ass off, but eventually I saw it and I saw it happening. He went maybe like a foot, and then he went 3 feet. And then lo and behold, around an hour, he was riding around the parking lot.
There you
Like,
go.
wow. Okay.
Beautiful.
Good thing my BS actually worked. So, but for me, it was a teachable moment because at some point we can't always be our kids' guardrails. For me, it has to be something that you can be there for support, but you can't always be their parachute. Their parachute. They have to know that on this thing, this sea, this ocean called life, you just can only be. You will be the lighthouse. All right. You will be the safe port that they come back to, but they have to go out there and face it. So for me, that was a really big teachable moment. And then also another teachable moment is again all about gratitude. I've been this past couple of months, I should say, probably this past year, especially with COVID, I've been calling my mom a hell of a lot more because I've always been of my parents' three kids, I'm the middle child, but I've always been that Spartan, if you will. I'm always out into the world and doing my thing and always going about the warrior's journey. I'm too busy, I'm handling shit, so I'm doing stuff and I am, and that's how they raised me, to just go out there, drop me in the middle of the Sahara Desert, and next week you come back, I made friends with the Bedouins, that's just me. Yeah. But right now I call my parents a hell of a lot more because I understand with the perspective of being abroad and not having the opportunity to see them or give them a hug or just go sit down and have coffee, like, hey mom, how are you? Must not have been easy raising three kids on Haiti, with the political circumstances, but I just want to know how you're doing, have a good day. You're going to the clinic? Okay, fine. Okay, I'll call you later. And she told me that I appreciate the fact you're calling me now. I enjoy these conversations. And even at some point where she told me, like, because we talked a lot about old jobs and talking about stuff. And she was like, I did not know that about you. What was going on? Mom, we were fighting. I was busy handling life and I did not take the time to tell you. And we probably should have. So sure, I really would have liked to hear that, even though I wasn't there, but I'm sorry that, we couldn't talk. So for me, that was a teachable moment. And the last one is a reach. A reach is something that I really can't gel with. Let me see. Damn, that's really puts me on the spot because I love everybody. I'm just always find the positive in everything. Oh, okay. A reach for me, again, personal stuff. My wife and I were doing this project of trying to empty a room in our house, which is basically like, that place that becomes the dumpster for everything. So we chose that place, like Haitians know what I'm talking about. But the thing is, as much as I love my wife, I realize that there are limits to our level of communication and collaboration. And, sometimes I'm not the nicest person, don't just tell me like, yeah, we're just going to do, what is the plan? Where is this going? Why is this still here? Let's just throw it away. There is nothing to debate. Can we just throw? So I have limits. Even myself, I realize that even as much as I want to portray myself as the most understanding and welcoming person into the world, I have limits. And sometimes I have grown into having limits. And I acknowledge that sometimes even I can be an asshole. And you know what? I can't deal with this right now. Let me just go for a walk. You do you. Yeah. Right. I'm not sure if I answered your reach.
Oh, brother, you answered it very well. The only thing that I have personally is that I know your wife. So now I am on the spot for having you share this about that.
She knows.
Reach.
She knows.
So now I expect my phone to be buzzing.
She knows.
And the next thing you know, I'm gonna be in trouble,
knows.
Right?
We were very, because we have that relationship where we're very open
great.
now. It's like I just tell like, babe, right now this is just too much for me right now. You do you. I love you. I'm gonna do me right now. So that's it. You have to know your limits when you're in the toxicity is like really reaching to a point of no return. Exit the premises and just go breathe. Just go breathe, and it's okay. We will try this again at some later date.
Yes, sir. So Olivier, you are a podcaster.
Yes, sir.
Where you have the podcast Awaken the Awesome. Where can the people listen to all this gem of wisdom and
appreciate
all
you, man.
this like this beautiful soul that you are. Where
Oh,
can
man.
people find you?
I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for this terrific conversation. I don't know if I'm not sure if I've honored you. It's like, dude, I'm rambling all over the place, but thank you so much for this wonderful time. The podcast itself, shameless plugging, main website, awakentheawesome.ca. That's basically, it's all one word, .ca. That's the main website. People can just pop on. There's no fluff, no muss. All the episodes are there. And again, if you just don't want to go to your website, just type Awaken the Awesome on Apple Podcasts or Google whatsoever. Even Spotify, I'm all over the place. Awaken the Awesome. And for people who want to follow me, I'm also on Instagram. That's where I'm mostly active. It's ATA, short for Awaken the Awesome, ATA podcast. So that's it. No, anybody wants to check in, that's where I am.
We'll put that on all our show notes. And it's like, it's always a pleasure to kind of connect with,
likewise, man,
people like you. It's like, I don't know, man. I know it in French. I can't speak English anymore. Un baume pour l'âme. How would you translate that? You're the guy who's more proficient in this. How would you translate that?
It's a pleasure and a thrill, man. It's a pleasure and a thrill. It touches the soul. I appreciate you so much. I'm grateful for our friendship. 20 years plus, man. Even life happens. We lose each other from time to time, mais c'est toujours un plaisir et un honneur, to connect with you, my friend. You're doing tremendous work. I congratulate you for jumping into the pool of podcasting. 3 episodes in, they have been phenomenal. Shout out to your production team, for tremendous, execution. And I'm really not saying this lightly. Like, since episode 1, you realize I called you. I'm like, dude, what you're putting me to shame. Like, what is this?
You know what? You mentored me. I will say that you the one who has been the one that knew that I wanted to do a podcast for the longest time. But the one that gave me the tools, and that's something that's very specific about you, is that you always address things to give people that you care about the tools for them to be successful. So you kind of like, you don't only give them a fish, you teach them how to fish, and that's beautiful.
It's important.
So,
it would be very pirate of me, like, very selfish of me not to, because I just wanted to really let you know that it really means a lot. These stories that you tell, the way you tell them, how you bring them to life, it really fuels me. It was even the episode, the 3rd episode, I'm sure it was something that was very, very heavy for you to do. I'm not putting that aside. Even I did an episode about, a very particular chapter for Regine and I can only imagine how that was heavy for you. But I want to invite everybody to go listen to episode 3 of Teach Reach. It's definitely something that, you guys definitely should experience. It's not just an audio experience. It's an experience in itself. But
thank you so
I
much,
celebrate you, brother. I celebrate you and everything that you do. And I see nothing but greatness and awesomeness coming out of this program, man.
Thank you. If there's anything, seeing 2 Black guys telling positive, loving stuff about each other,
I know, right?
My job is done, man. That's it. I'm done. Like, I'm happy with that because that's what we can. That's the this Cornet, who's a beautiful singer from Rwanda and lived in Montreal, who said there's a song that he wrote for his wife that's called Home is by You. And he said, there's one line he said, maybe one day we'll have our little army and we'll raise them to soldier of love. And isn't the only way to change the world really to leave the next one with the heritage of love? And I feel that you're leaving me and everyone listening with the heritage of love. So thank you so much for all the love, the wisdom, the courage, the vulnerability that you shared with us. And we will have to get you back. Like, I mean, like, you're a teacher, so you come to the show whenever you want.
Anytime you need me, I'm there. I'm there. Anytime.
Perfect. Sweet. You can listen to Olivier's podcast, Awaken the Awesome, on Apple Podcast, Google, and Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. You can follow him on Instagram at ATA Podcast or on his blog, awakentheawesome.blogspot.com. Enjoy the ride. Kembela Palagi. Teach Reach is made by Dr. Lemstein Productions, mixing and editing by Ian Lamb. The intro and outro music is by Takoto. If you'd like to listen to the show on the regular, become a subscriber and leave us a review on Apple, Google, or Spotify. You can find more information about our podcast at teachreach.podbean.com. Until next time, Kembila Palagi. Hang in there. Don't give up.